In this video I'm going to show you how to create an animated background for a character that's walking towards the camera, and then I'm going to show you how to make an animated looping background for a character that's walking towards the camera. Now this tutorial is fairly long and complex and took me quite some time to put together. I've done my best to try and explain the concepts so that they're easy enough to understand, but if you do have any problems or challenges with trying to recreate what I'm teaching here, be sure to leave me a comment or a question in the comment, and I'll try and clarify anything that you might be struggling or having a challenge with. So here we are in Cartoon Animator 5, and this is the looping animation that I'm going to be showing you how to create. I'll just hit the play button and it's already set to loop just so that you can see how it works. You can see there it's just my character walking towards the camera and with the background going away from camera to create that illusion that she is actually walking along. And this whole looping animation is done with just 57 frames and is a little bit tricky to set up, but not too hard. It takes advantage of Cartoon Animator's 3D camera and Z-axis. So we'll be getting into how this all works, and I'll show you how to do this if you don't need it to loop, because making the animation loop is actually more complicated than just making an animation where you want a character to walk towards the camera and you don't need the background to loop at all. In fact, you can do a lot more if you don't need the background to loop. So I'll stop this there and we'll get into how to set this whole thing up. So to get started, I'm going to go with a completely new project and we're going to put my character on the stage. We're going to use the free resources for this. So we'll go into the free resources here, scroll up to actors, go to the actor folder, scroll down, and I'm going to use the red character again because aside from the fact that she's got a front view, she's also got extra feet sprites so that you can have her feet facing forward, and it looks a lot better than some of the characters that don't and have their feet out to the side. So I'll just put red on the stage. If you're doing a walking animation like this, the character needs to be completely in the middle of the scene for the effect to really have the best look about it. With this, you can just say with the default camera position, but I like to make sure that the recording camera matches the default camera. So I'm going to click the home button with the recording camera turned on, so that now when I turn that off and back on again, the two cameras match. And if I happen to move the scene around while I'm working on it, I can just hit the home button and I'll get back to what the record camera will be seeing. So the next thing I'm going to do is add in the walking motion for this character. Again, that's in the free resources. Go into this animation pack and go into 3D motions, because I found the best walking forward motion is actually this one here, this female walk forward in the 3D motions. So with our character selected, I'm going to double click on that, and that's going to open up the import 3D motion editor here. Now you see if I preview this just directly from here, this hasn't been committed to the timeline yet. We'll just hit this play button. You see the character's walking towards the camera in this loop, and you'll see her feet bend really weirdly as she's walking forward. So we don't want her to walk forward like this, so we need to fix that first. So down here in the projection box, just scroll this down a bit, and we want to select this box here, root motion, and that'll keep her on the spot. But we don't want all this foot rotation happening, so we need to go to the body tab and scroll down here, and you'll see this box foot rotation. We want to uncheck that, and now when we preview, the feet aren't doing that really awkward twist and turn. It still looks a bit weird, so now we need to go and fix the sprites in her feet. So before we do that, we'll apply this to the timeline and get out of this, and we'll open up the sprite editor and change her feet to front facing feet. This character has, you see we've got this foot 0 here that's front facing rather than this 45-degree one. We'll do the same for the right foot, use the foot 0, and we'll close this down, and now when she walks, hit the play button, You'll see that's a much better looking walk. We'll stop that. Now the next thing we want to do is set up the ground that she's going to be walking on, and that's just a coloured rectangle. We'll go back to free resources, scroll down and go into the scene and prop menu, or pack, and I'm just going to do a search for shape and scroll down until I see this square prop here. Unselect her and just double click the square prop. Now what we're going to do is resize this to the stage so that the x-axis is on 0, so I'm just going to change that up here so that it's in the center of the stage that way, and we're just going to extend these middle handles out like so, and I'm going to move this down just a little bit so she looks like she's standing on top of it like so. So now if I open up the timeline, open up her motion track and make this animation loop when it gets to the end of her motion. So we go frame 57, click this button to make that the last frame in the playable selection. Now if we hit the play button, you see it looks like she's walking on the spot and on top of this box here. But if we wanted to just move the box up just a couple of frames on the y-axis, select it, move it up a little bit so that she's really got her feet flat on that box. So this whole effect is based on a concept in perspective, which is 1-point perspective, and just to try and explain it a little bit, with perspective the horizon line is always the eye level of the viewer generally, and we would consider this line across here the horizon in this particular image, which means that our eye level is actually at the base of her feet. If I was to move this up like so, we'll just push it behind her a bit and then move this up like that. If you were to take that at the horizon is now at her eye level, we can see all this way into the distance up to that horizon. So there's all kinds of things we could put in here as background. But if I take it back down, as we get lower and lower, we can't see as far back into the distance, at least in the sense that we're looking at a lower angle and we can't see as much of the ground going back into the distance. That's why this effect works, and it also works because using just this clear shape means that we don't have to do any animation on the ground. The whole illusion is formed by the buildings and whatever else we have moving into the background. So this bottom piece we will eventually move forward to hide all the bottom sections of whatever we move, whatever object or prop is moving into the background, but for now we'll leave it there, and we're going to go into the scene menu and we're going to lock this off so that we don't accidentally select it. So that square we're just going to lock. Now that means if I click on it anywhere on the stage I can't select it, but I can select it if I use the scene manager, and once I've selected it there I can move it around again. But undo that, deselect it, I won't accidentally click on it on the stage. Alright, next up we're going to do some sky, and we're going to get that in the free resources back inside here, and then we want to go into the prop. The sky comes from the beach scene possibly. This sky prop here in the beach scene, I'm going to double click on that, and this prop we're going to put as far back as it can possibly go on the Z axis. So I'm not even going to select, like try and resize it here, I'm just going to go on the Z, and the absolute maximum you can send something back is minus 9,999, so I'm going to type that in, minus 9999, and hit enter, and now I'm going to resize it so it fills the whole stage like so, and bring it up just a little bit so it fills that top part, keep it in the middle on the x-axis, not that it matters, but hit 0, and then I'm going to lock that off as well so that I can't accidentally select that. Now the next thing we're going to do is create a prop that is going to control the movement of everything that we put into this environment. We're going to link every single thing to it. So to do that, we're just going to create a rectangle. I'm just going to duplicate this rectangle. I've got it selected over here, and hit the duplicate button up the top here. You'll see we've now got square 0, and it's also locked, so I'm going to unlock that, and then we're going to move it up. And I make this, first thing I'm going to do actually is go into the composer with this prop and move where the root bone is for the prop. So I've got it selected, go into the composer, and you'll see this is the root bone here. I want that to be at the base of the rectangle here because that's going to make it a whole lot easier to resize. So to change that, I'm going to select the prop and I'm going to open up the sprite editor, and that will let me move this sprite around and put it up there like so. So we want the X axis to be 0 and in line with the edge like that. So once we've done that, close that up, get out of the composer, and the other thing I need to do is change the color of this. I'm going to do by changing the opacity. You need to be able to see through it as well. Change it down to about say 42. At the very end we're going to make the opacity on 0, or we're just going to turn it off. But for now we're going to line this up with the ground. In fact, we can just go click this button 0 key, and that will put it in roughly where we need it, and even be down behind there. And I'm going to make this, you'll see now I can adjust this and it doesn't change the location of the bottom part here. Make it the size of the stage. Might even go a little bigger and make it roughly the size of the sky. And I'm going to take it back so it's behind my character, about 5, and now we're ready to get started. All we have to do now is take advantage of the fact that we've got this 3D camera that can go back or send props back into the distance quite a way. So you'll see if I grab this and adjust the Z axis, keep pushing it back and go quite a long way. But what we want to do, create a keyframe for that. So with that selected, that rectangle selected, we go on the transform, and then we're going to move the playhead. Let's say we move it 1500, because this determines how fast everything moves at. So I'm going to go to frame 1500, and then I'm going to push this back till it's nice and small. Oops, hit the wrong angle thing there. 7,000 up to 8,000 on the Z axis out there, and then we want to move it down so that it's level in like so. Make sure X is on 0 and that it's lined up with the exact same spot here. Now you'll see when we scrub back, moving forward and backwards. We want to get to that point quickly. We can just select the first frame and hit the tab key, and that'll send us to that frame. And I'm going to make the width of my animation where this point is for the moment. I'm going to hit this button here, select my end frame. I can just get an idea of how fast that's going to travel. So I hit the play button now from the start. You can see that's fairly slow, probably a bit too slow, so maybe we'll bring it back from there. We'll bring it up. I can just go cut, and then go to frame 1000. We'll try putting it there, so I'll go paste, go back to the beginning and press play. And that's not too bad for now. We can move that up again even more if we want to go even quicker, but I'll leave it there for the moment. So before we get into demonstrating how to create a looping animation, if you don't want it to loop, I'll show you how easy it is to actually create an animation where the character is just walking towards the camera and things are going off into the background. And the basic process works like this. Go into our prop and we'll choose the park, flora, trees and stuff. So here's how it works. Whatever you want in your scene, you just put in your scene at the default spot. So let's say we want this tree. I'll bring that in. We'll make sure the tree is about in line with where our character is on the Z axis. So our character is at 0 on the Z axis and our tree is at -5, so that's close enough. And we just place the tree on the same line that she's standing on and then scale it so that it matches the scale of how big that tree is in relation to the character. So if this is a huge tree, it would be like that. A small tree, we'd put it like that. So we're assuming this is a big tree, and then all we do is link it to our translucent or transparent square here. So we hit the link button and then click on the square, and now this tree is linked to that background. And if I move the playhead, that tree will now start moving into the background. If we go play, you'll see she looks like she's walking away. And if I actually loop her motion. So we've got her clip here, and I'll just grab the end here, make sure I've got the looping function on here, grab the end, and we'll just keep looping it so that she doesn't stop walking all the time. I'll just loop it a few times, I'm not going to go all the way to 1,000. You can see here, if we go play now, looks like she's walking along towards the camera and that tree is moving away. If that looks a little slow, we could go in and adjust the speed of this, because this will adjust the speed of everything attached to it as well. So if we want it to go a little bit faster, we just go into our rectangles transform track, go to the end here, it's on 1000, so we cut that out from there and come up to maybe frame 600 perhaps, frame 600. We'll paste a keyframe in there, and now that we're there, we want to make the end of our animation match. We'll click our end selection button, and we'll see what that looks like. So it's moving it away just a little bit quicker. So let's say we want to add something else to that, and we want to add something, say around about here. Maybe we add a different tree. Make sure we don't have anything selected when we do this. So we want to add this tree into the mix. Again, we just put it on the stage. Make sure its Z-axis is about the same as where she is. And you'll notice this is creating a path because we're not at the beginning of the animation. That's okay. We're just going to put this tree roughly where it is. We want to size it in relation to our character. We'll assume this is a fairly big tree as well. And now what we do, before we do anything, is we right click on this tree and we go remove object animation. And now we're going to link this to our transparent square. So we go link, make sure we've got the square selected in our crosshairs, and attach. And the last thing we need to do now is make that link be at the beginning of the animation. So with the tree selected, we open up its link track, and you'll see the button linking point is here at frame 80. We want that to be on frame 1, because that's going to push this tree forward with this actual box when it moves forward. So if I scrub this now, you'll see that tree starts to go backwards. But if I start to go towards the beginning of the animation, that tree just stopped. We need to hit this, grab the link point there and bringing up to the start of the animation. And you'll see now that tree is going to start walking or moving with the animation. If you wanted that out of frame a bit more, you could move that over a bit. That would be fine because it's on the first frame. And if we hit play, see, it looks like she's walking forward. And you can just keep doing this and keep adding more and more things in. So let's say we want to add something else in, coming in somewhere around this point. Let's say deselect our tree, we'll put in these bushes here. Again, make them sort of match the size of the character. If we go there and remove object animation, let's say we want to add something else in with that. So we want this fountain, so we'll put the fountain in over here. The perspective on this fountain's not actually very good for this. You really want that to be so that you can't see the inside of that. So, but just for now, we'll leave it at that. Maybe we'll hide that behind the bush a little bit. Maybe we'll go make it a smaller fountain. Maybe just an object like that, perhaps. In any case, we'll just go remove object animation. And again, we're just going to link both of these to our rectangle at the back. So hit the link button, make sure the rectangle's selected, link, and down in the link track, you have to go find it. You'll see it's over here. We want to bring that back to the beginning. And do the same with the tree, so get that, link that to our rectangle, and again move the link point back to the beginning of the animation. So you see when we scrub through this, we can see the bottom of the fountain, and that doesn't look particularly great. What we need to do is keep an eye on this tree here and just see what the Z-axis ends up being once we're at the start. So you can see the Z-axis is 2701 0.8, so I'm going to copy that, and then we're going to select our grey base square in the scene manager. We're going to change its Z coordinate to the same thing, and go paste, hit enter, and you'll see that completely disappears, but we need to move it back into view. We're going to go focus all, maybe not focus all, we do focus object. There we go. We want to lift that up. Clearly that's too far. We just need it to be in front of this fountain when it's coming onto the screen. Again, we just position it the same and we'll see if it does the job. There we go, that's now hiding the bottom of the fountain when it comes on screen. Make sure it's touching her foot. And as I said, you can keep adding anything you want into this. If you want something to go further into the background, you can pretty much just add that in. So let's say we want, say, this tree. And to begin with, we just scale it in relation to our actor and character. Then we want it further away in the background, so we can just push it into the background like so. Then move it down and link that to our box, and then that will move with the background as well. The last thing to do if we're not doing a looping background is to just turn our transparent square off, just this one, and then hit play, and you can see that's how easy it is to create a character just walking along. Obviously we'd want to fill all this area around here with more things, or maybe we just bring the last frame up a bit, depends how much you want in the scene. But now we're going to create a looping background. So for the looping version of the animation, I've got the same setup that I started out with previously on the non-looping version. So we've got character in the middle with her walking action, and in the scene we've got this square on the bottom locked off, and I've repositioned it back so it's behind the character on roughly the same Z-axis as what she is. Undo that to put it back, and then we've got this transparent square or rectangle, and that goes back like it did before, only this time I've adjusted the speed on that so that the final frame that goes to is on frame 300. So you can see there, frame 300 is the maximum that it goes to. After that nothing happens, but I needed her to walk a bit faster through the streets because this loop operates on one cycle of her walking loop, which is just 57 frames. So I needed her to be walking a bit faster to get enough movement for it to look and work the way it does. We go back to the start and select our character, and you can see we've got the female walk loop. It's the same loop, and I've made the end of my animation at frame 57, which is where this actual loop loops and keeps going. So now if I play this animation, you'll see that's what we have at the moment. Now a loop animation is more complicated because you have to make it so that the starting frame is an exact match to the ending frame, and because we're only going across 57 frames, we've only got limited movement to be able to do that. Something that I've found is helpful in creating the composition for a looping animation is create perspective lines that go to a vanishing point. Just to sort of demonstrate what I mean, I'll actually show you by going in the scene and props pack, searching shapes again. I'm going to get a line shape. We'll get this thin line prop here, or nothing selected, and I'll just bring that onto the stage. And then I'm going to take this into the composer so that the root bone on this prop sits at the base of the prop rather than in the middle. So we'll open up the composer, select the prop, open up the sprite editor window, and we'll just move this up so that the bone is on the end. That prop there, we'll make sure the x-axis is on 0 so that it's centered. Shut the sprite editor down and go back out. And you'll see now, if I select this prop, move it around and rotate it, it will rotate from the bottom there, giving us a vanishing point line. I'm going to make this longer just by adjusting the height. I can bring it right off the edge of the screen. Then we're going to put the base of this line down at the vanishing point on the horizon down here. So if I deselect that, my line is going to the vanishing point just there. And if I rotate that a bit, I want my buildings to be sort of at that angle. Because of this low eye level perspective point, my buildings are going to have an extreme angle up there, and down here they would be in line with the horizon. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm also going to turn off my actual square while I'm setting up my buildings. Turn that off so that I don't accidentally select it. And we'll get our first building. I'm going to props of the scene and prop pack. Open that up, and just while we're setting this up, I'm going to turn the timeline off. We want to go into the, I believe it's might be outdoor scene. Yep. You can see in here I've got my two buildings that I use. This is the easiest one to start with because it's already on a perspective angle. I'm just going to bring that onto the stage. And this is a fairly old prop, and it's back in from Cartoon Animator or Crazy Talk Animator 2 days, when it was called Crazy Talk Animator. It's an RS prop or render styles prop, and you can see there's these sort of thin black outlines on it that I don't want, so I'm going to get rid of those by opening up render styles. And you'll see there's this show outline check mark here. If I just untick that, that'll get rid of that for us. And the next thing we want to do is size this down. Use the width and height button up here. You can see for some reason the default is 300%. I'm just going to change that to 100 and hit enter. Bring it down. And then what I'm going to do is, just using the deform tool, I'm going to make this fit with my perspective line here. Doesn't have to be exact, but we're just using that as a guide. What we want is the bottom here to be fairly straight, and the top part, this line here across the front, should go at roughly the angle of this line here. This line here would also go at a steep angle going that way, but that line's going to be hidden by the next building, so it's not as critical, but you'll see how that works once we get into it. Do this deform, we open up the prop key editor, and we're making sure we're on the first frame of the animation, so we're not creating any keyframes. We're just going to start making sure we're on the deform tab here and start moving things around to try and flatten the bottom part of this building. And I'm not going to spend too long on it. And then I'm just going to get out of this so I can move this down to my horizon. Then open up the prop key editor again, and we're going to try and adjust the top part of the building, give it a bit of a slope. Bring that down a bit. Maybe leave that. We could do that, or we could leave it a little bit higher. Then instead of using this, we could just adjust the width, take off the lock and just push it in this way so that it's not as wide a building, because it's actually on a side view, so there should be some foreshortening between this edge and that edge. And you can see now we're sort of getting roughly in line with my perspective line there. That's about there. There we go, that's that building. Now what we want to do, get rid of this line now. I don't think we really need it. I'll just turn it off. Now we're going to set up the buildings on this side of the street. So this building, I'm going to scale it so it's roughly the size of my character, in scale with her. I'd say that's probably pretty close. Move that there. Now what we're going to do is duplicate that one. We'll duplicate it, move it over, and instead of resizing it, we're just going to push it back on the Z axis. So that goes into the distance. Then we're going to try and position it so it looks roughly about right on that side. And these rooftops should roughly be in the same line because it's the same building. Once we have that, probably bring it forward a bit, bring it up. Then we're going to duplicate it again. So we'll duplicate this one, do the same thing, bring it over, push it back. Till it's roughly where we need it to be. As you can see, that's going behind my character, and I don't want that. I want a bit of a gap between her and everything else. So I'm going to select all of my 3 buildings there. Then I'm going to try adjusting them in this way and push them over a little bit. Move that over. And move that one over, like so. Right, next thing to do is to get them moving. And the way this works is we've got to move it so that this house moves into the exact position of this house, and then this house moves into the exact position of this house. That's why all the props have to be the same on this side of the street, so that we can get the illusion of this side of the street is a whole row of houses rather than just 3 houses sort of being animated. That's why you can't have all the prop variations on a looped animation. So to do that, we're going to start by turning on our transparent square again, and we're going to get our first building, which is this one, and we're going to link it to the square. So as you can see, it's selected. We get the link button and make sure it's over the square. Go link, and we'll turn back the timeline on, and you'll see now when I move the playhead, that building is now going to be moving. We want to move all the way to the end of our loop, and as you can see, it's almost there, but it's not quite lined up. So all we're going to do is, for this building here, is copy all of the coordinates for the building behind it. That is, this building here, we're going to copy into this building on the last frame. So you see I've got this building selected. We want the next one selected. That's the second door, and we look at the coordinates up the top here, and you can see the z-axis is minus 2043.1. So we just copy that using Control C, select it, Control C. We'll go to our first one and paste that coordinate in here and hit enter. Now we'll go to the second one again and copy the y coordinate, copy that into our first one, paste and hit enter, and we'll go back. Second one, copy our x coordinate, Control C, back to the first one, copy the x coordinate, paste and hit enter, and you'll see now our first building is now perfectly aligned with the second one. So if we move that, you'll see that perfectly lines up on the last frame of our animation where the loop starts. Now we want to do the same for the second and the third house. We want this house to move into the exact same position as this house on the last frame. So we're going to get the last house, and we're going to copy its coordinates from the first frame over into the last frame there. So we're going to do this, get the last house, and we'll copy its z coordinate, copy, and we'll get the second house, paste that into the z field, hit enter. Get the third house, copy its y coordinate, go back to the second house, copy the y coordinate into there, hit enter. Go back to the third house, copy its x coordinate, go back to the second house, paste the x coordinate into the second house, and hit enter. Now you'll see when I move the playhead, got both houses moving into place. Now we need the third house to be moving into the fog on the last frame. We're going to have to create that. So I'm going to just turn off my square for a minute, go with the third house. I'm going to duplicate that and position that. There's a good chance you won't be able to get this one the right size, as you'll reach the maximum size. So we want to get it as far as we can without it disappearing. So up in the z-axis we want it to be minus 9998, so it doesn't disappear behind the sky. If we can position that, you can see it's sitting way too low. What we're going to do is going to put it on the horizon, but we're going to scale it as well, and we're going to lock the scale together so that it scales proportionately, and just shrink it down the rest of the way using the corner like so. Move it over, we bring it up a bit like so. Now this house is going to fade into the background or into the fog, but before we do that, we've got to make this house move into that house. So to do that, we need to link this house to the background, or to our square. We want the third house, link it to the square. You'll see it moves a little bit, but it's not moving nearly enough where we need it. So it's the second last house. We're on the last frame of the loop animation. We're just going to copy all of the properties from our very last house into the second last house. Or we should say all of the properties from our last house into the second last house. So first up we want the width and height. Because this is locked, we can just copy the width. Go copy, go back to the second last house, go paste on the width and hit enter, and the height should automatically match. The last house, get the Z coordinate, copy that into the second last house, paste, hit enter. Last house, get the Y coordinate, copy, Control C, second last house, paste it into the Y coordinate, hit enter, and on the last house, I'm going to get the X coordinate, copy, second last house, copy that into the X coordinate, go paste and hit enter. Now you'll see when we move this, we've got our third last house moving exactly to the second last house. So the final thing we need to do is on the first frame, this last house needs to be completely transparent. And in fact you could probably even delete that, but I'm just going to make it transparent. And then on the last frame, our house here, third last house, needs to be transparent as well, with just the opacity over here. And I've found this works better or looks better if you open up the opacity track, and on the transition on the frame for that opacity where it goes to 0, if you open up transition curves and select decelerate, it looks better than if you just have linear, because it takes a little longer for it to disappear. There we go, decelerate, and there you go. So we'll close that up. You can see now that this house here, when we're moving this along, is gradually fading out as it gets further and further away. Now obviously you can see there's a big gap up here where we're missing a house, so we've now got to fill that one in. And to do that, we go to the first frame, we select our first house, duplicate it, and then we go, before we do anything, we duplicate it and then we right click on it and do remove object animation, so that it comes unlinked from our rectangle and doesn't start moving with this house into the second house position. And then we go to the last frame, and you'll see that house is still there. And on the last frame we want to link this to our rectangle, so making sure it's selected, hit the link button and link it to our rectangle. After you've linked it, you now have to take that link and put it back on the first frame. On the last frame here, we need it on the first frame, so just click and drag it back to the first frame, and that'll push that house forward. So you'll see now that house coming in the last frame. And that's our side of the street done. All I have to do now is turn off our controlling square, just in the scene manager, turn that off. And if we play this loop now, got our continuous side of the street moving along. So for the other side of the street, it's going to be a similar process, just different building, and we have to do a little bit more work to get it ready. I'm going to close down the timeline for a second, and it's this building here that we're working with. So bring that onto the stage, and again this for some reason has got a massively oversized default size, so I'm going to adjust that back to 100. Bring it over, and again it's the render style type prop with the outlines that we don't want, so we open up render styles, turn the outlines off and close that. And as you can see, the bottom of this building is kind of nicely lined up, but the top isn't. We want it to match this line here. We're going to use deform again. We're going to turn our line back on and rotate it around this way. That's somewhere around 320, 315, just sort of roughly matching this side. Select our building and open up deform. Get on the deform tab and start shrinking it down, bringing it up, and we might bring that up a little bit. So we want this sort of be heading towards our vanishing point as well. And again, we can also mess around with the width up here, unlock that and push it over this way. And I would say that's not too bad. What we want to do, just to make things easier, is to align these with the building on the opposite side of the street pretty much. So on the Z-axis, we're going to get the Z-axis for this one, which is 159.2. We'll just copy that, Control C, we'll add it to this one, paste, enter, that puts it about there. And just for the moment, I'm just going to duplicate that a couple of times for these two. So we go duplicate, move that one over, and that's going to have this one's Z-axis. I'll copy, add it into this one. I'll paste, and duplicate it again. We'll use this one's Z-axis, and copy that into here. Paste, enter, bring that down there, and we want to start putting things into position. And obviously this is a two-story building. I'm going to try bringing it a little bit closer up here, moving the Z-axis. Might move this one a little bit closer as well. By making them all a bit skinnier, match this side of the street a bit more. So again, we've got to have these moving into each one's position like we did on this side of the street. We'll start with this one, turn on our control square again, and we'll link that to our background. We'll open up the timeline, go to the last frame of the animation, and on the last frame we're going to make the coordinates of our first building match the coordinates of the second one. So select the second store, copy the Z coordinate, Control C, first store, paste the Z coordinate, enter, second store, copy the Y coordinate into the first store, paste, enter, copy the X coordinate from the second store into the first store, enter. Now you'll see that our first building perfectly matches the second building by the end of the loop. And again, we've got to do that with the second and third buildings. So second building, we want to attach that to our control rectangle. So link, click on the control rectangle. Now we move to the last frame. And we want our second building on the last frame to match the coordinates of the last building, so we'll copy them over, copy the Z coordinate over, copy from the third one into the second one, paste, enter, third, be the Y coordinate, Control C, the second one, Control V, paste, enter, and the X coordinate from the last one, Control C, the second one, Control V, enter, and now we've got our second building moving into the last one. And once again we've got to do our last building that fades away on the last frame. We'll select the last one, duplicate that, we're going to move it out of the way and push it back to minus 9998, so 9998, enter, and see if that will move into place. Still a bit big, we want to resize, so we'll lock the size and push it down so that we get it there. Now we want the third building to move into the position of our fourth building that's going to fade into the fog. So get the width of our last building, copy, and we'll copy it to the width of our second last building on the last frame, paste, enter, then we'll get all the coordinates, the Z coordinates. This actually wants to be 998, but we'll leave it at what it is. It's fine, it's basically like 0.1 off what we wanted it to be. I'll copy that into the Z coordinate of the second last one. Your Y coordinate, paste that into the Y coordinate of the second last one, hit enter, then get the X coordinate, copy that into the second last one, go paste and hit enter. Now we've got our last building going into there. So again, on the first frame we want our last building to be completely transparent, and on the last frame we want our second last building to change to 0 opacity. And then in that building's opacity track, I'm going to select the last frame, do a transition curve and change it to decelerate, so that building doesn't fade out quite so quick. Now what you'll notice is that this building doesn't have a side. For this side of the building it's just see-through nothingness. So to fix that, all I did was turn off our control square and our thin line. All I did was duplicated one of these buildings. So on the first frame we'll select this building. I'll turn off the timeline for a minute so we can see this better, and duplicate that building. Remove object animation so it's no longer linked, and we're going to flip it, put it behind this building, and I'm going to get off the record camera so I can move around a bit and go back to home. I want to zoom out a little bit so I can see what I'm doing here. I want the top of this building to roughly match the top of that, and we'll resize this bit, unlock it and just zoom it back. Open up the deform editor so we can do some changes that way. We don't want that back in there. Don't want to see any of the green. Just have to move this down a bit. You'll notice how everything is all over the place now because I'm moving the camera around. Very much depends on the angle that you're looking at things, but I need this down a bit. Okay, so now I've got that side of my building made. I'm just going to link it to the front of this building, and you'll see now when we move the timeline, the side of my building should move with it, and we might actually do a little bit of adjustment there on the last frame. And to do these other ones, we're just going to duplicate that on the last frame. Go remove object animation. And then we'll link that one up to here. Last frame, we might just move that over a bit. Move it up a bit on this frame too. Then we need one more just for our last building there. We'll duplicate it again and go remove object animation. And now we'll link that to the last building. And obviously we need to add the opacity to that as well. So on the last frame, we'll just make the opacity 0, right click and add our transition curve, decelerate. And obviously we've got this big gap here again, so just to do that, fill that gap in. I'll select this one, go duplicate and remove object animation. And on the last frame, put it there. We'll turn our square back on again so that we can link this one to our square. And then move the link back to the first frame. And obviously we need our side of the building too, so we're going to duplicate that. move object animation, go to the last frame and link that to this building. And bring that link to the first frame again. It looks like we need to do some adjustment to that, otherwise we're going to get this really weird problem here. I'd even be able to just get away with it by doing this, moving that over. Maybe not. Have to put a keyframe on the last frame for that on its transform track. Move it out the way at that point. And I think that's good to go. You'll notice that building is kind of floating in, and I can't just move that down now because that'll affect everything down the line. This will become unlined with that, and we won't get this nice sort of smooth line of buildings going along that we have. So what we do to fix that is we get our bottom rectangle here, and we're just going to move it forward. I want to get it where this is starting to come onto the scene, and bring this forward and up till it's in front of that. Find out what that's at, over 1000. So position it slightly higher and make sure we remove object animation so that stays where it is, and we may have to move our character up just a little bit. And now when we play the animation, everything's looking relatively good. Do have a bit of a gap over here. Go on to this. It's only for a second, like we could fix that. I may be stretching the back of this hotel a little bit. So we don't have that bit of sky showing. Okay, so now we've got our buildings done, looking pretty good. We've just got our street lights to add to this side, and then we'll add a bit of a road surface to the ground. So stop that for the minute, close down the timeline, and we'll get our street light, which is this lamp just here. We'll bring the first one onto the stage, and just like before, we'll position everything first and then start moving it around. So firstly, we've got to get rid of this black outline because it's part of the render styles props and we don't want that. So opening up render styles, unchecking the tick for the show outline. Next we place this roughly alongside our character and get the sort of scale of it. I'd say maybe just a touch bigger than that, about there. And I'm going to put one of these street lights at the corner of each of these buildings. So we just start with this one and we'll put at about the same z-axis as this building. So this one's at 301, so we'll copy that, transfer it into my street light on the z-axis, enter, and that looks a little big. I might move it back, maybe make it a little bit smaller. It looks a bit big for the building. Put it about there, and we're just going to duplicate it and move this one back. Want it roughly in line with this building, so it's got, get the z-axis from that, copy it and paste it into the z-axis on this, enter, and position it roughly at the corner of that building. We'll duplicate that one, move across and position this roughly at the corner of this building, so we'll copy the Z-axis for that to this lamp, paste, and then enter, and position that lamp down there, and that looks all about right. So now we've got to start animating the various light poles. Change my scene to my scene manager so I can see the street lamp things here, and as before we're just going to link this lamp to our background control rectangle. We'll open up timeline, turn on our control square again so we can see it, and we're going to get the first street lamp and link that to our background or our control rectangle, and we're going to move to the last frame. And we're going to make sure on the last frame that our properties for the X, Y and Z angle match the next street lamp, so we're going to copy those across. The second street lamp, starting with the Z axis, we'll copy that to our first street lamp, paste and hit enter. Back to the second street lamp, get the Y coordinates, copy, back to the first street lamp, paste that into the Y, Control V, hit enter, back to the first or second street lamp and get the X coordinate, copy, go back to the first street lamp and go paste. Now when we move back to frame 1, you'll see that street lamp moves into the position of the second one by the end of the loop. Now we need to do exactly the same thing with the second and third street lamps, so we'll get our second street lamp here and go to the end frame, and we're going to copy the third street lamp's numbers into the second street lamp, starting with the Z axis again. Second, so paste that into the Z axis and hit enter. Back to the third one, hit the Y axis and go P. Second one, Y axis, paste, enter, and get X. From the third one, go back to the second one and copy that, hit enter, and now we've got both street lamps moving in. Now we need to do our third street lamp. So what we're going to do is we're going to link this one to our control rectangle first. And we're going to hit the link button, connect it to our background, and move to the last frame. You'll see that's moving with the background. Not entirely sure I'm happy with where that's going. I'm going to select this building, which I think is that one, then move to the last frame, get the Z axis off of that, Control copy, and I'm going to get my third street lamp and copy that into my Z axis for that, enter, and then I'm just going to eyeball it for moving it down and across, and again that street lamp needs to fade out just like the building it's near. It also needs to shrink a little bit on that back frame. Change the opacity to 0. Now all we've got to do is one street light that has to come in here. To do that, I'm going to go back to this street light, duplicate it, and remove the object animation from that one. Go back to our end frame. We're going to link this to our background piece. So link a background rectangle, and we're going to open up the link track and move that link back to the first frame, and that should give us our other street light coming in there. And I'm just going to move that down a little bit over here just before it hits. A bit there, and there we go. If we now turn off our control square, Go back to the start and just play this on a loop. Open it up a bit and just play. Now we've got our loop. I think I'm just going to try getting our character, maybe just moving her up just a touch more, just to get her feet on top of the ground. Getting a bit low, I think that should be better. Now last thing we're going to do is add a bit of a road here so that she looks like she's walking down the road in the middle of the street rather than just this big sort of mall area. So to do that, I'm going to try zooming out a bit, and I'm going to duplicate our ground piece. Select that, duplicate, and I'm going to move it in front one, and I'm going to change the color. This is an SVG prop, so to change the color we go into the SVG color selector, whatever this is called, and just click on the fill for that. I'm just going to turn the grey level just down to a slightly darker grey for the like tarmac on the road. Go OK. And then I'm going to open up the FFD track. This is all being done on the first frame of the animation. And in here I'm going to click this additive button in the FFD editor, and then I'm going to select this option here. All I want is to create this road surface so that these edges here are angled inwards. I'm going to try this one. That's a little more what I had in mind. I'm going to narrow the width on it, so change the width and go 199. We might just go 99, that's getting there. Might even just make it 50. I'm going to go back this position, open up the FD track again, FD editor. I'm going to keep adding this, bring it out more. Then I'm going to adjust the width again, put this down to 10. Back into the FD editor. And I think I might adjust the height as well. 10. Bring the whole thing up. Make it a little bit wider this way. And try 15. There we go, that kind of looks more like a path or a road, and then we've got pavement here. I think that's about it. So there we go. Get rid of all this and play our animation on a loop. So that is how you create a looping animation in Cartoon Animator 5 with a character walking towards the camera down the street. And one final touch you might want to add in is to make the character blink, so that she's not just constantly staring the whole way. We'll just go to about frame 10, open up the face key editor, and in the face key editor we can go to templates, and I believe it's the wink maybe template. You've got this wink 3 here, which is actually a blink, so we'll just go click that one. You'll see now she's got her eyes shut, and we'll just move forward maybe 4 frames, 4, then we'll go back to neutral face. We'll open her eyes again, close that down. Now when we play it, we'll see she's blinking her eyes as she's walking along every so often. There we go. I hope I explained that all relatively well so that you're able to follow along and create your own looping backgrounds in this sort of setup and structure. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. The first part of the tutorial, where it's just a character walking towards camera and animating the background, is actually the easiest part, and you could probably just get away with that for most situations. But if you do need a specific looping background animation, then I hope you were able to follow along with the second part of the tutorial. So that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.